can't believe she did that. She got the damn strawberries on my microphone, Bella. What's up, everybody? This is... Oh, shit. Damn. Daenerys in the House of the Undying. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this chapter a bunch. Like a lot. Like a metric ton. Right? Metric ton. It's really good. She sees the entirety of the future of the events that happened to her, not only in the next few books, but also potentially what's going to happen to her in the winter. There's a moment where she sees all of these slaves. Well, first of all, she sees old crones bowing to her, right? Those old crones bowing to her are the Tockstein. She's going to be sort of thwarted. Oh, no, that's not the right word. Careened? No, that's not a good word either. She's going to be shoveled. There we go. She's going to be brought before the Tockstein. Like, Drogon's right there, right? The Khalasar's coming up to get her. Ultimately, they're going to bow before her. She's going to march with them to the Tockstein to increase her army. She literally, the one thing she needs to save her right now in Marine, obviously she flew away from that, but the one thing that will be able to wipe all of her troubles away is to bring a massive horde of Dothraki down, following her because she's riding dragons, and just wipe all of those motherfuckers out. Everybody. The sell swords. Anybody who's, like, not bending the knee, you're dead. You're done. You're dying. Right? So, on page, 597 in Clash of Kings, that is the Daenerys House of the Undying chapter. Please, if you haven't read it, you will enjoy this little video a lot more if you do. So go grab Clash of Kings if you don't have it. Turn to the page. I have to check again 597 and then read it and then come back and watch this, because I promise you all the jokes and the stuff that I'm about to say will be better if you kind of have already read it, right? I'm not going to read the entire chapter. I'm just going to talk about it. So that's what I was saying. If you've read it, that's good to go. But anyway, so she sees these old crones bending to her. She sees tens of thousands of slaves bending to her. You could say that moment is obviously when she frees Marine and breaks Astapor's chains, right? And then the people start following her. The freedmen literally start following her. They're part of her forces. She's got the freedmen. She's got the Dothraki. Very little of them, because remember, she only had 100. A little less than that, and leaving after she left Karth, after the House of the Undying, the part that I'm about to talk about. And she's obviously got the Unsullied, right? So the Unsullied are being killed, but nowhere near as much as the freedmen and the Dothraki dwindling down, right? So ultimately, like I was saying, she sees all of this stuff. But this is some of the most interesting. Let me just clip it here. Well, this is the part that she sees the Rhaegar, so let's talk about that real quick. The long hall went on and on with endless doors to her left and only torches to her right. She ran past more, this is on page 601. She ran past more doors than she could count. Closed doors and open doors. Doors of wood, doors of iron, carved doors and plain ones. Doors with pulls and doors with locks and doors with knockers. Drogon lashed against her back, urging her on, and Dany ran until she could run no more. Now, I will say this. George should have put a anxiety warning on this chapter, because if you are easily prone to anxiety, you could get very anxious when you're reading how Daenerys is just going in circles. And I'm going to tell you something from first-hand experience. Daenerys drinks a hallucinogenic drink before she goes into the House of the Undying. So 90% of the stuff that happens to her that she sees is hallucinations. Of course, it becomes true, right? The hallucinogenic drink sort of unlocks her potential to be, a green seer. She's kind of like, if I had to guess, the House of the Undying is probably a giant, like, glass candle, right? And the hallucinogenic drink, Shade of the Evening, that they make from these, like, literally, they're the opposite of weirwood trees. They're just the Essos version of weirwood trees. And you have weirwood paste that Breanne consumes in the Dance of Dragons, and he starts to see time unravel before itself, right? It's the same thing that happens to Daenerys. So anyway, when you take mushrooms, you do, like, when you take a little bit too much, sometimes you'll do things repetitively over and over again. Sometimes because it looks cool, sometimes because it feels good, but also sometimes because you're just high on, psilocybin, right? So, did the part, where she drinks the hallucinogenic drink and she goes into the house and then dying. She keeps opening doors. She keeps going to the right. She opens iron doors and wooden doors and this door and that door and all the doors in the world. She's probably just walking in a circle. Opening the same wooden door, iron door, and the another kind of door, right? And she just, her mind is like projecting this crap into her brain. She's like, yeah, this is another door. This is a different door. This isn't the same door. This is another. I don't know. I just thought that was funny when I was reading it because it's hilarious. She's like, and then she took the door to the right, and then she took the door to the right, and she kept running, and she took the other door to the right, and she kept going, and then this door, and that door, and that door, and that door. It's very anxiety-inducing. But she's also on the fungus, so, Anyway, finally a great pair of bronze balls appeared on her left. Sir Hunt has the sense of humor of a child. Finally a great pair of bronze doors appeared to her left. Grander than the rest, they swung open. As she neared, and she had stopped to stop and look. Beyond loomed a cavernous stone hall, the largest she had ever seen. The skulls of dead dragons looked down from its walls. Red Keep. Upon a towering barbed throne sat an old man in rich robes. An old man with dark eyes and long silver gray hair. That's her dad. She's saying her dad in the throne room, sitting on the Iron Throne, and he says, "Let him be king of the ashes." Y'all didn't know this, but the Mad King was called the Mad King not because he was mad, but because he was a metalhead. I'm the Mad King. Let him be king over charred bones and cooked meat. Let him be king of the ashes. Drogon shrieked, his claws digging through silk and skin, but the king on the throne never heard, and Dany moved on. Viserys was her first thought the next time she paused, but a second glance told her otherwise. The man had her brother's hair. Oh, I thought I skipped something, but no, she's moving on to the next room, and she sees Rhaegar, right? But she thinks Viserys was her first thought the next time she paused, but a second glance told her otherwise. The man had her brother's hair, but he was taller, and his eyes were a dark indigo rather than lilac. Aegon. Rhaegar's voice is like the same as the voice that Roy Detrice, the narrator for the audiobooks of Song of Ice and Fire. He does the same voice for Rhaegar that he does for Mance Rayder, which is, my opinion, it's weird. He did like this weird like Irish like leprechaun type voice for Daenerys, and I think he used it for Arya for a while in the later books. And he gave that voice to Rhaegar, like I said here, and then also to Daenerys in the beginning. So it kind of makes you wonder if like, because Mance had that same voice, if like he wasn't told something by George, hey, Mance is secretly Rhaegar, or Mance could be potentially a lost Targaryen bastard or something, right? From maybe, if you're wondering like, oh, well, how would he be lost? Well, there's two Targaryens at the wall with working dicks, right? You got Aemon, blind Maester Aemon, right? And then you also have Bloodraven north of the wall. Bloodraven's been, pretty busy, right? He goes to the wall, then he becomes Lord Commander, then he leads a ranging north of the wall and then disappears. He probably in that time spread his seed around. He knew that Targaryens were becoming rarer and rarer, so why not drop a few Targaryen bastards on the wall to help protect the world from the great others. Like, that's one of the Targaryens' missions, being fire, is that they have to sort of come to combat the ice, to burn it away when it becomes too encroaching. Like, ice preserves, fire destroys, but also too much preservation leads to destruction and death, because everybody's dead, right? So you have fire coming in to sort of balance it out. But basically, the interesting part there is Rhaegar goes, not Rhaegar, but his wife. I initially thought it was Lyanna when I first Heard about Daenerys' House of the Undying Vision. Look at how awesome these maps are. This is the illustrated edition. I got this from my anniversary. It's really dope. Initially, I thought it could potentially, because there's no, like we know it's Rhaegar, but, like, Ellia's name isn't mentioned. Elia Martell, Rhaegar's wife, right, isn't mentioned specifically. So I was like, oh, it could be Lyanna and Rhaegar, and people are just misinterpreting it. And that's actually Jon Snow that she's seeing, and not Phaegon or Aegon, who, is being raised by Jon Connington over in Essos, and he's now in Westeros, staking his claim to the Iron Throne, right? But that's not the case. So, Elia Martell, I mean, it could be the case. Who knows, Elia Martell asks Rhaegar, she says, will you make a song for him? The woman asked. And Rhaegar responds with, he has a song. The man replied, he's the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire. He looked up when he said it, and his eyes met Dany's, and it seemed as if he saw her standing there beyond the door. There must be one more, he said, though whether he was speaking to her or the woman in the bed, she could not say. The dragon has 3 heads. He went to the window seat, picked up a harp, and ran his fingers lightly over its silvery strings. Sweet sadness filled the room as man and wife and babe faded into the morning mist, only the music lingering behind to speed her on her way. So Rhaegar probably did see Daenerys. Rhaegar has the sight. Rhaegar has the gift. That's why he's melancholic, right? Viserys had the gift. That's why he forced his wife to just keep popping out babies until it killed her, right? We know that Aegon had the gift. That's why he decided to conquer Westeros. Even before that, when the Targaryens survived the Doom of Valyria, we know Dany's the Dreamer had the gift. She's called the Dreamer. She had dragon dreams, and they left Valyria. But here's the thing. I've always kind of wondered this whenever I say it, or whenever I'm thinking about it, or making videos or whatever. If Dany's the Dreamer has the gift, it's not specific to only Targaryens. Why did no other family in Valyria, aside from obviously the Celtigars and we have the Velaryons, right? Aside, like, why are they the only ones who left? Like, you got dragon dreams running rampant. I'm pretty sure a lot of the dragon riding families, at least all of them, had at least one family member that had the gift, right? Why didn't they all listen to him, right? Because the story wouldn't really work. Targaryens, I guess, wouldn't be as special because they wouldn't have, been the only ones who survived the Doom of Valyria. But it could potentially be that we just don't know. George, hasn't written it into the story yet about the other families. Like, if they're living somewhere over in Essos, or potentially went to Solthrios or Ulthos or one of the other many unknown places to Westeros, you'd have no idea that there's this other dragon riding family, potentially with dragons still, in the world, and they just haven't really, you'd think that you'd hear about them, but honestly, no, you wouldn't, because when you read World of Ice and Fire, you see that there's entirely unknown regions, way, way bigger than the known world, that they don't know about, so it's pretty easy for, a family of them to get out of there. But yeah, it's like what makes Daenerys, and her father, wanna, like, Aenys the Exile, what made them want to leave and not other people that I'm pretty sure knew about it? Because you got to realize they had glass candles so they could see across time and space. They knew something like this was bound to happen. It just makes me wonder, potentially George just hasn't revealed it yet, that there's another Valyrian family out there that could, potentially have left and maybe mixed some of its blood, probably split up. And, the free city of Lys, a lot of the free cities have, Valyrian features. A lot of common people have Valyrian features. It's not really that special, so kind of makes you wonder. At least me, anyway. But George is really good at creating mental depictions and images in your head for stuff. So, Daenerys is turning right and turning right and turning right and going left and doing this and walking through that door and walking through that door. And then she comes across these doors, and each image, scene, or vision that she's being shown, I have a perfect depiction of it in my head, because, like, we get just enough detail for our mind to fill in the blanks. Whereas if George put too much detail about exactly what it looked like, it wouldn't be as well, I mean, I guess it would, but it's just, I don't know, it's just very well written chapter. Then lastly, I was going to get to the part. Oh, here we go. Okay, so page 603. About halfway down, so 2 paragraphs down. Beyond the doors was a great hall, and a splendor of wizards. Some wore sumptuous robes of ermine, ruby velvet, and cloth of gold. Others fancied elaborate armor studded with gemstones or tall, pointed hats speckled with stars. There were women among them, nice, dressed in gowns of surpassing loveliness. Shafts of sunlight slanted through windows of stained glass, and the air was alive with the most beautiful music she had ever heard. A kingly man in rich robes rose when he saw her and smiled. "Daenerys of House Targaryen, be welcome. Come and share the food of forever. We are the undying of Karth." Food of forever sounds like it doesn't have all that great of a taste. It's just forever food. It's kind of a warning to Daenerys. Come and eat with us undying people. We seemingly are just really rich and fanciful, and we don't really die, and we look amazing, and we're soothsaying you, right? So skipping ahead a bit, she took a step forward, but then Drogon leapt from her shoulder. He flew to the top of the ebony and weirwood door perched there and began to bite at the carved wood. "Willful beast," laughed a handsome young man. "Shall we teach you the secret speech of dragonkind? Come, come." Remember, they're trying to get Daenerys to come into the room. Doubt seized her. The great door was so heavy it took all of Daenerys' strength to budge it, but finally it began to move. Behind was another door, hidden. It was old, gray, splintery, and plain, but it stood to the right of the door through which she'd entered. The wizards were beckoning her with voices sweeter than song. She ran from them, Drogon flying back down to her. Through the narrow door she passed into a chamber awash in gloom, right? So just imagine you walk outside. Well, first of all, just imagine you go into a coma, okay? Right before you go into a coma, you're in springtime. You're in summer. Summer in the Florida Keys or some shit. Fucking hot. Beautiful water, scenery, and all that stuff around you. That's your last mental image. Bam, coma hits you. Nothing, just black. Then you wake up and you walk into Chernobyl. That's kind of like how my brain works with that. So remember, the chambers awash in gloom. This new room. A long stone table filled the room. Above it floated a human heart, swollen and blue with corruption, yet still alive. It beat, boom, boom, a deep, ponderous throb of sound, and each pulse sent out a wash of indigo light. Indigo is like purplish blue. Boom, 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 boom. The figures around the table were no more than blue shadows. As Dany walked to the empty chair at the foot of the table, they did not stir, nor speak, nor turn to face her. There was no sound but the slow, deep beat of the rotting heart. Boom, 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 boom. "Mother of dragons," came a voice, part whisper and part moan. "Dragons, dragons, dragon." Wait, let me do it better than that. Hang on. "Dragons, dragons, dragons." That's my devil voice. I can't do it as good as I once could. Other voices echoed in the gloom. Some were male and some were female. One spoke with the timbre of a child. The floating heart pulsed from dimness to darkness. Boom, boom. That boom, boom that I keep doing is not actually in the book, so I'm just trying to make you guys think that I'm a good reader. It was hard to summon the will to speak, to recall the words she had practiced so assiduously. "I am Daenerys, Stormborn of House Targaryen, Queen of the 7 Kingdoms of Westeros. Do they hear me? Why don't they move?" She sat, folding her hands on her lap. "Grant me your counsel, and speak to me with the wisdoms of those who have conquered death." Through the indigo murk, she could make out the wizened features of the undying. One to her right, an old man, wrinkled and hairless. His flesh was like ripe violet blue. His lips and nails bluer still, so dark they were almost black. Even the whites of his eyes were blue. They have the blue eyes of a bod. They are fucking high on spice. That's a Dune reference. One withered breast was left bare in the Carthene fashion to show a pointed blue nipple, hard as leather. Now, that's in reference to when she first sees these people. There's a wizard bitch with a gown in the Carthene fashion, and she's got her titty hanging out. And Daenerys goes, "That's the most perfect titty I've ever seen. If titties couldn't be more perfect than that." And then she sees her actual titty, and it's this blue leather bag with hard leather nipples. Yeah, George likes that. You know what's really weird? There are tons and tons of descriptions of titties in this book, but hardly any descriptions of ass. I mean, I guess it's not weird, but. So anyway, Drogon, Daenerys starts getting, consumed by them. Like, they start basically ripping at her flesh, and then she starts getting, where does that start at? She starts getting more visions, right? So basically, they're trying to steal her life force from her, and they're feeding her visions that are so deep and intense that she's sort of just stunned and allowing them to take over her body. So the phantom shivered through the murk, images in indigo. Viserys screamed as the molten gold ran down his cheeks and filled his mouth. A tall lord with copper skin and silver gold hair stood beneath the banner of a fiery stallion. So these visions are running at Daenerys quickly, right? So the first one is she sees Viserys with the blood falling down his face as when he's getting killed by obviously Khal Drogo and Vaz Dothrak. And remember, not allowed to spill a drop of blood, so he takes a gold molten kettle and dumps it on Viserys' face. Then she sees a tall lord with coppery skin and silver gold hair stood beneath the banner of a fiery stallion, a burning city behind him. Rubies flew like drops of blood from the chest of a dying prince. So right there, the tall lord with copper skin and silver gold hair stood beneath the banner of a fiery stallion, a burning city behind him. That is her son, Rhaego, that she potentially has with Drogo. But it never came to be. Remember, if you read this, if you read the whole chapter, not just watching this, Daenerys is told by Pyat Pri that she will see visions of things that haven't happened, that will never happen, things that did happen, things that will come, and things that won't ever happen. So that's one of those, like I just said, it's one of those is that her son would have grown up and burned cities, laid cities to the ground, right? And then the next image, so she saw Viserys, then she sees her son, now she's seeing Rhaegar. Rubies flew like drops of blood from the chest of a dying prince, and he sank to his knees in the water with his last breath and murmured a woman's name. Now, I don't really have a full grasp of it, but usually a warg says their mother's name. Like, wargs in A Song of Ice and Fire have said their mother's name or a woman's name, or, Jon Snow says ghost as their last word. Like, Jon Snow's not dead. Yeah, technically right now he is, but his last word is ghost, right? There's another instance of, I believe it is Varamir Sixskins. When he dies, he whispers a woman's name, but he goes on to live. I'll come back to that. I'm going to make a full-on video of that. Mother of dragons, daughter of death. Glowing like a sunset, a red sword was raised in the hand of a blue-eyed king who cast no shadow. So, glowing like a sunset, a red sword was raised in the hand of a blue-eyed king who cast no shadow. Stannis. Stannis has blue eyes. The Baratheons' deep blue eyes are heavily mentioned. Like when, for instance, when Breanne is looking at, when she sees Renly, obviously, she falls in love with him because of how he looks, his blue eyes also. But more specifically, when she sees Gendry, Robert Baratheon's bastard son that he has, who's a blacksmith working for Tobo Mott, who ends up going with Arya to join the Night's Watch to go north with Euron, right? When Gendry is seen by Brienne, Brienne thinks she's looking at a younger version of Renly. Right? It's the blue eyes. Renly's eyes are a little bit different than Gendry's, but she thinks like, oh my god, this little motherfucker is Renly come again. And it's because he's Robert's bastard. But one of the things that all of other Robert's bastards have are these blue eyes. Stannis has those deep blue eyes, right? Renly has those deep blue eyes, and like the fact that the king casts no shadow is because Melisandre uses Stannis' shadow to go and kill Renly and Courtney Penrose and the flaming sword. That's obvious. Remember, Stannis has the sword that Melisandre glamours up to make it look like, Lightbringer, the flaming sword of Azor Ahai, the hero who saved the world from this long night of darkness by defeating the White Walkers in the Long Night, right? And then she sees a cloth dragon swayed on poles amidst the cheering crowd. From a smoking tower, a great stone beast took wing, breathing shadow fire. So that one's kind of hard, right? But when you read the rest of the books, you realize that a cloth dragon, right, swaying on poles amidst a cheering crowd is probably referring to young Griff. Young Griff raising the banner standards of House Targaryen for when he gets the Golden Company to ally themselves with him and he goes back to Westeros. And the crowd cheering is like him, cheering up the crowd. Or I could be completely wrong with that. From a smoking tower, a great stone beast took wing, breathing shadow fire. Now, Melisandre's always talking about waking stone dragons at Dragonstone. So potentially, there could, in my opinion, what that could mean is that there is a forgotten dragon on Dragonstone, around Dragonstone, whether that be Cannibal, whether that be the old Queen's dragon, Silverwing, that's come back because she survived the dance. There potentially could be another dragon somewhere. Smoking Tower makes me think of Dragonstone, and the dragon taking flight means that it could have been in a state of hibernation, or it was just wild, and something calls it back into action, like maybe Daenerys dying will call the dragon to her or something. Who knows? And then the last part is her silver was trotting through the grass to a darkling stream beneath a sea of stars. A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, gray lips smiling sadly. A blue flower grew from a chink in a wall of ice and filled the air with sweetness. Mother of Dragons, Bride of Fire. Bride of Fire is a badass metal band. Mother of Dragons is too, but Bride of Fire. We are the brides of fire. We are the bride of fire. We bring death and destruction wherever we go. So let's break those down, right? So, her silver trotting through the grass to a darkling stream beneath a sea of stars. So maybe, after she dies, her horse will survive her, and she may warg into her horse and go out to the Dothraki Sea and live like that. I don't know. I was weak on that one. A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, gray lips smiling sadly. A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, gray lips smiling sadly. I mean, you could say Euron putting Aeron Dampere at the prow of his ship, and he's half dead, and he's like smiling because he's like when you die, it's mentioned like Tywin's face tightens up and he kind of looks like he's smiling. So potentially maybe someone who we all thought was dead is actually alive, and they're going to come back in the prow of the ship. I don't know. Aside from that one, a lot of people think it's Euron. The smiling Euron and Theon specifically has like a smile. Is always kind of smiling, like there's some secret joke that he knows that no one else is a part of, right? Same with Euron. Euron has his smiling eye, so he's got this eye that he reveals when he's sort of glamoring people. At least that's what I feel like he's doing, because he's got a regular eye, and then he's got a terrible blue eye, and when he reveals it, it's like kind of a big deal, and I feel like he's glamoring people into seeing certain things. Standing on the prow of a ship. And then, you hear the bright eyes, right, in his dead face. Euron's features aren't necessarily described as corpse-like, but the line about his lips, gray lips smiling sadly. Gray lips could also, gray lips could also be interpreted as maybe blue lips, right? And Piot Pri drinks Shade of the Evening. His lips are permanently blue. Euron Greyjoy drinks Shade of the Evening from kidnapping Piot Pri and the Warlocks of Karth. And he drinks Shade of the Evening and his lips turn blue. And like that kind of is the Euron symbology there. That eventually he's going to come bring a massive army of ships. And maybe... she'll have to kill him in the process or something, or maybe he tries to betray her and she sticks his body on the corpse on the prow of a ship. I don't know. You all let me know what you think down below, obviously. And then the last part, a blue flower growing from a chink of wall in the ice. That's clearly Lyanna Stark. Lyanna Stark loved blue winter roses. She was given a crown of blue winter roses by Rhaegar at the tourney of Harrenhal. The night where all the smiles died, so to speak, but really where the story kicks off, because this is, at that tourney, right after that, Rhaegar kidnaps Lyanna and takes her off to Dorne, to the Tower of Joy, so. It was really fun. Daenerys ends up getting her way out of this because Drogon rips and bites at the corrupted heart, and that sort of snaps her out of it, and she realizes that the Undying are grabbing all over her. Then eventually Drogon lights the whole place on fire, and she walks out. But yeah, the visions, in my opinion, are the most amazing part. Thank you all for watching this. We hit that 31-minute mark. Please slap a like on it. Please subscribe. I make content here on YouTube, and I love A Song of Ice and Fire. I love Doom. I love Star Wars. I love all the stuff that I make videos on. So yeah, subscribe if you want to watch my content. Thank you for watching. AnaaaRodarte.